Hello and welcome back to Agents of Travel. I'm Rachel Van Ness.
And I'm Garrett Palm. We have a really cool guest this week. I mean, a lot of our guests have been cool.
Yeah, but this is the first bona fide, certified fresh traveler.
Yes, certified fresh. His name is Eric Czuleger. He's a writer, an author,
A novelist.
a novelist. He's got a book called "You Are Not Here: Travels Through Countries That Don't Exist." Then that subtitle right there kind of gives you a little clue into what he does.
But we're not going to divulge it all.
Yeah, so this is a long one, so we're just going to jump right in. Just a couple things. There is some talk of violence, a quick mention of sexual violence, but yeah, so just, if that is not good for you, just be warned. But it's an amazing episode. He has so much cool stuff to say. Let's jump right in.
Woo!
Were like, where do you live? And I foolishly told them that I live in Kurdistan. And you should never tell a Turkish official that, because you get interrogated real good. And
Was it scary?
yeah, I mean, I felt like my interrogator he looked a lot like Seth Rogen, which was really strange.
You're like Seth Rogen, but scary.
Yeah, and since I think maybe just because there was only one cop, he was like both good cop and bad cop, but you just know what was going to happen next. So like sometimes like I feel like we were like big homies, and then the next like he was like squatting my legs and telling me to sit up straight, and I was like, oh god, this is a very confusing and unnerving cop.
Going into like Eliza Doolittle like sit-ups like manners and
I mean really like I didn't know, like certain cultures have different things that are offensive to them. And I know that like in like Arabic culture, this might be in the larger Middle East and in Turkey as well, but like it's considered to be very, very bad manners to show the bottom of your foot to somebody. So like if you cross your leg and it's like the bottom of your foot is pointing at somebody, it's super bad manners. But like my foot was not pointing at him. I just felt like we were all buds here. I was just chilling out for this interrogation, like, and I figured since we were being such bros about it, like maybe he's gonna be like, okay, we can tell that you're cool, you get to get into Turkey and you're not a PKK terrorist. And then he kicked me out of the country, so I'm still banned from Turkey.
How is there like a process that you go through to get unbanned, or like is it like you're banned for this many years? Or
I don't know. So I've tried to go back to Turkey and like saw the same border guard as he like turned me right around.
Oh my god, it's one guy who hates you.
Yeah. It's just Turkish Seth Rogen, and I'm like, I feel like maybe he's worried that we'll become too good of friends.
He's afraid of male intimacy as well.
That's exactly right. So that's why he's kicking me out of Turkey.
I hate to say, because it sounds like you've been interrogated before, and I have to be honest here. Rachel and I aren't just Rachel and Garrett. We're secret agents.
God damn it again.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at this. This keeps happening.
Yeah, we saw you. You looked like you were having a good time, and we're like, let's ruin his day.
Yeah.
You and the rest of my interrogators.
No. Well, I hope we're better interrogators than Turkish Seth Rogen.
I'm just glad that we're on Zoom, so you can't like mildly slap my knees, which as far as Turkish interrogations are concerned, I'm sure that was like the light, that's the platinum package.
They were like, we know what'll scare the American. Slap on the knees.
Just a little slap on the knees.
That's what they do. That's what Americans do with the doctor.
Yeah. So we are agents for I always get this wrong. The National Office
Travel and Tourism Office.
National Travel and Tourism Office.
Gotcha.
And we are going to interrogate you to figure out your dream trip because we are competing for a promotion. I'm not doing well. I can't even remember the name of the institution I work for. But we are competing for a promotion. And so these will be factored into our evaluations.
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah, we are junior secret agents trying to work our way up. So we are going to interrogate you about your previous travels. Yes. And then pitch you a trip.
Listen, I respect the hustle and I always comply with authorities.
Good.
Great. Yeah, no, the government's big on hustle culture. So.
It really is. Hustle, grind, and slay every day, civil service officer.
Yes. Okay, Eric, are you ready?
I'm ready, yes.
So, what was the first trip that turned you on to travel? What was your first travel trip love?
I think it was, so I went to the Peace Corps in 2011, and I got sent to a really tiny town in northern Albania called Byram, Surrey. Shout out to Byram, Surrey. And
we have a lot of fans there.
I figured, yeah, Blair T. Hyder Matai, James Nazai, everybody, all the boys at Awesome Vokshi Gymnaz, you know who you are.
Dude, love those guys.
They're such great dudes. Let's drink coffee when I get back to town, boys. Yeah, so I was there, and it's right on the border of Kosovo, and I hadn't really traveled independently ever. Like I went through my entire college years at like Cal State Fullerton in Orange County, California. And so I never done that sort of backpacking trip thing. And so I pretty foolishly was just like, okay, well, I'm going to just like stitch together a trip, and like, how hard could it be? So day one was immediately like the first catastrophe. I was just trying to get up to the Czech Republic, and there was a bus that went from a place called Jakova, Kosovo, which is right on the outside of northern Albania. And there was like a direct bus. And so I went over and had my bag packed. And then that day it was like, I went to go get some euros out, and my card was eaten. And so I basically only had like 200 euro for, I think it was something like 20 days of travel. So like not enough at all.
No, that's really stressful.
And I was like, we just got to stay positive about this. We'll figure it out. And then, more catastrophes happened. I went to the bus station. The guy was like, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to Austria. And I show him my passport, and he's like, oh, you've got Kosovo stamps in this. I'm like, I know I'm in Kosovo. And he's like, yeah, but the Serbs are probably not going to let you through because they don't recognize Kosovo as a country. And I was like, shit. I probably, what do you mean? Like 75% are they going to let me through? Because like I got a $15 hostel booked in Austria, and I can't let that money go. And he was like, 60%. And I'm like, how can I make that better? And he's like, put $20 in your passport and see if they bite. And I was like, okay, cool. And I felt very cool, bribing a border guard probably like 12 hours before we got to the border. But as soon as I got to the border, I was just like sweating and shaking, especially as like the very serious border guards came in with like rifles and stuff. And then they pulled out my passport, and they butchered my name. And I'm like, oh, yep, that's me. That's who they want to talk to. And so I got taken off of the bus, and the border guard like showed me the $20 and was like, what is this? And I was like, that's where my $20 was. Oh, no. And so I ended up, and this is like, must have been like 13, 14 hours into my first solo backpacking trip. And not only do I have no money, but I've tried unsuccessfully to bribe a border guard. And then I just we were just kind of standing in the middle of the border, and there are guards everywhere. And like, I had all my stuff. So I was like, I guess I can just run away. So I just like turned and like ran across back to the Kosovo border. And then I was just in the middle of a street at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in Kosovo. And I was like, well, this first day of my first solo trip is going great. And but I fell in love with it because it kind of makes you have to lean on serendipity and take the right kinds of chances and let the generosity of circumstance take over. Because after that point, when I was like, the trip that I had planned on going on clearly isn't happening, I just kind of have to submit to the trip that's happening in front of me. So eventually a Serbian Coca-Cola truck picked me up on the side of the road and drove me back to Pristina. And, a Bulgarian flautist helped me find a place to stay in Sofia, Bulgaria, and stitch the rest of my trip back together from there. And it was just like, if it wasn't for that, if I wasn't, if I was just sort of doing the normal tourist trail stuff where I'm like, I'm going to go to that museum, I probably would have never had like any sort of genuine experience or made so many friends on the road. So yeah.
I love that idea of like kind of like surrender, like just surrendering to the trip that's presenting itself, because it is like, we've talked about this a lot, but it's like you almost go traveling for the hope that serendipitous things will happen, and you just have enough structure so that you're like setting up the spontaneity to happen.
Totally. And I think people kind of get in their heads a little bit too much for like what they're supposed to do on travel. Especially like as Americans, we're just like, we're used to maximizing value as much as possible. So it's like, I've got to go see the Champs-Élysées, the Arc de Triomphe, the Eiffel Tower, and Shakespeare Co. in one day, and then I will have experienced France. And it's like, well, first of all, that's a lot of walking.
My
thing is just always like you have to just sort of slow down in whatever area that you are enough to let the city grab you and let the city tell you what it wants you to know.
Just exist in a spot and kind of like be a part of it, be a part of the scene, be a part of the life in that place. It's like so much more rewarding to me, at least.
This is something I kind of what's that?
I was going to say, like, it is an exercise in presence too, because I was reading that American productivity culture or whatever can also transfer into traveling. So it's this idea that like, also you have to get all the pictures, you have to go to all the places to validate and justify that was good, you went on this trip to everybody back home. So there's like kind of all of this like external pressure on trips. And I even feel that sometimes, but it's like, if you're able to get rid of that and sort of just be present with the city you're in or the place you're in, I think you're right that you can have like ultimately a much more rewarding and surprising trip.
I think one of the things that like my sort of like general rules of thumb when I'm in a city that I've never been to, like, I mean, I really will just kind of go anywhere and figure out some, like I was just in Cologne for a couple of days because I was talking at a thing, and then I was like, I guess I'll just stay in Cologne for a bit.
It's a great city.
Really,
I love the beer culture there.
What a beer culture. It's that you kind of need an instruction guide.
Yes. I know.
Like it was like playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like you needed a counter. I think there was a guy with a dice, writing things down.
The guy behind the bar is your DM.
I think that like what you're talking about too is like the idea of letting those expectations that not only like what you have for a trip, but like what other people outside of your trip have, letting those fall away as quickly as possible is kind of the best thing that you can do. And then the city will show itself to you based upon the things that you specifically like. So I always say just do 3 things in any city on a day, and that's a great day. Do like one smarty pants thing, do one yummy thing, and do one spiritual thing, and whatever that is. Like if you find those 3 things every single day, you're gonna meet some really cool people, and you're also gonna have some really cool experiences.
So it's like your 3 things: eat, pray, think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like eat, pray, think.
Yeah.
The fourth one is love. If you really make a connection with the locals, I suppose. But I don't think that you should go into a city just being like, time to bang these locals.
Yeah. Agreed.
No love today, damn it.
With your because I like your story of just like this catastrophe, like some of my early trips had like catastrophes like that, and like I found for myself it made me like grow and trust myself and like get confidence in myself.
Word.
Like I can do this, I can make it through these scenarios,
and
it's like
your spidey senses kind of grow too, where you on the other side of you getting into a stranger's car can either be the most memorable and meaningful meal with a family or you being murdered.
Yeah.
And you need to tell within 15 seconds what kind of car that is that you're getting.
I know that's like goes back to what you said about like taking the right chances. Which I'm curious, like, what's your general rule for what the right chances are?
Oh, it's changed over the years massively. I think sometimes I've gotten more cautious. Yeah. But then I look at my track record and I don't think that's the case. I think that my metric for doing anything that is potentially dangerous or potentially physically damaging. So like I'll separate it away from like, potentially I could be, involved in some kind of crime, or I could also just end up in the middle of a desert. Like both are equally possible. Or, I do mountain climbing too. So that's, more on the physical danger side of things. So I don't really believe in like travel skydiving where it's like, this is a very dangerous thing. I'm going to walk out of it saying I did a dangerous thing. Like the amount of meaning that you get out of the experience has to be proportionate to the amount of risk that you're taking. Potentially going to live and work in northern Iraq while the Islamic State was just right next door, not the safest thing in the world. But at the same time, I felt like the output that I could have potentially got, which is in this book, was good enough to warrant me being in a particularly dangerous environment. And frankly, northern Iraq at that time really, and still is not very dangerous. It's a safe place.
I've heard it's a great place to travel to right now.
Oh, totally. Would 10 out of 10 recommend people to go there.
It's on my list. But I like that you call it travel skydiving. Is that what it was?
Totally.
Yeah.
I just made up that term just now, but
but no, I completely agree, because it's like I'll take big risks, but it's not for the risk. It's like, it's for it, what am I getting out of this? Like what is this trip going to, what am I contributing to what the world or this location, or what am I like experiencing outside of that risk? It's not about the risk.
I think that that's also really critical too, like as far as like American travelers are concerned as well. We kind of have, in my opinion, an important responsibility, which is most of Americans don't travel. There are stereotypes that exist of Americans, and it's our job to sort of prove the good stereotypes about Americans correct, and potentially prove the bad stereotypes about Americans incorrect.
Hopefully.
So like if you find yourself wanting to go to a particularly spicy locale, then it's also your job to share the story with people back home, and to confirm or deny their stereotypes about a particular area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially to like your parents or whatever. Like
totally.
Like
how do your go ahead.
Yeah, you go, Garrett.
Well, how do your parents because my when I first did my first trip, or like some particularly dangerous trips I've been on, my parents don't like it. They're not big fans of it, and I don't think they've gotten used to it. And it's just like, I'm like, I'm just a constant source of stress for them sometimes.
Yeah. When I was heading into Somalia, I was in northern Somalia, a place called Somaliland. And actually through the year, randomly, my stateless year, I ended up becoming the ambassador from Liberland, that cryptocurrency back nation, to Somaliland. So I was there technically as an ambassador, but from one unrecognized nation to another unrecognized nation. All my mom really cared about was her son is leaving for Somalia, and he's going to be there for like 6 weeks. And so I like saw her right beforehand. And she definitely, I could see her looking at me and like taking this mental picture of me, because this might be the last time. I was like, Mom, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then you get scared, like, wait, am I fucking stupid for doing this?
Yeah. Like, and to me, the am I fucking stupid thing happened so much later than it should.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like oblivious until like
your mom is scared.
Like I was writing this book, I just finished this book, and I was like, this was a series of really either brave or dumb choices. And I know me back then, and it was definitely dumb, not brave, but here we are.
Yeah, because it's only brave if you knew it was dangerous. It's dumb if you were sort of like doop-a-doop-a-doop.
Yeah. I was just like, no, it'll be fine. Like I'm gonna be an ambassador. It's gonna look great on my LinkedIn.
And I'll say it does. I looked at your LinkedIn. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Garrett.
So Eric, tell us a story about your best trip. The best trip you've ever been on.
Oh man, that's so hard.
I know.
Yeah, it's so I will say,
or a top, like one that's up there.
One that's up there. I think that one of the better ones that I had in recent memory was going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And so I did this like totally on a whim. I had my break between Christmas and New Year's open up, and I had the vacation time booked, and I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do with it? And I started looking at different countries in Africa because I hadn't spent much time on the continent. And going to Africa is like saying I went to Earth. Like, it's just so diverse, and every place is so very different. And like the parameters that I set for that vacation, or that bit of travel, was I wanted to be as off grid as possible, just because I think that if you can work in your life enough time that you can have a vacation, well, there's no reason that you should be checking your email on vacation. Like, it should be, fully unplugged. And I was like, well, how can I make that happen? And so I came upon the Mount Kilimanjaro trek, and I was like, that sounds nuts. Let's do that. And, talked with a company and asked them what I needed to do. And they were like, well, are you physically active? Like, have you ever climbed a mountain before? And I was like, no, of course not. Either one of those things. And they're like, well, you should have good cardio and and I was like, I'm a yoga enthusiast. Like, I can breathe. I can touch my toes. And they're like, I mean, you'll probably be fine, but you should also know that, like, you might not reach the top. And I was like, fuck it, let's do this. Let's climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And it kind of checked all of those boxes. So like, I just met up with this group of internationals. There was it was like a lot of Russians and English folks, and a couple of Americans, and people from all over the world. And you just kind of saddle up and put all of your stuff in huge bags and walk up Mount Kilimanjaro together. And the scenery itself is not totally remarkable because it's a volcano, so it's a lot of volcanic rock. But what's fascinating is you go through, I think it's like every type of like weather, no, not weather, like
Climate?
environmental stratosphere. So it's like
Yeah.
you walk from a jungle to alpine mountain to absolute like Arctic frost at the very top. And yeah, at the end of the day, you're walking outdoors, totally disconnected from the internet, just talking with adults like the internet never existed, and you make such great relationships while you're there. And yeah, it's just fun to hike with people, and then seeing the top is just the most astounding thing in the world. There's this on super high mountains, they have these structures that are created by the wind blowing over the snow, and they're called different. They're in Spanish they're called penitentes, and then in English they call them bowing monks, and they quite literally look like a monk bowing and praying. And so as you get to the top, and usually you start quite early in the morning, what they call an alpine start, I think. So we started hiking at like midnight, and you can't see anything. It's just pitch black. You can see, the headlamp of the heels of the person in front of you. And as it's getting colder and the oxygen is getting lower, you can almost feel parts of your brain clicking off. And specifically, one of the most important parts that clicks off is that like internal voice that you constantly have. And it's just because that area of your brain is just so starved for blood. So it's like you don't have any internal monologue. And I could feel that it was sort of clicking off because I was walking up this mountain and I was just looking at the guy in front of me, and I heard a chicken. And then I was like, well, that's weird. I wonder why a chicken's up here. Maybe they're bringing it to cook later. I don't know. And then I just kept, like, every couple steps, I kept hearing this chicken. And eventually I was just like, I gotta say something about this chicken, because like this there shouldn't be a chicken up.
Someone's got to speak up about this.
I'm the only one brave enough to talk about this alpine chicken. Yeah. And so I just like yelled out to like everybody just sort of silently suffering on this mountain. I was like, do you guys hear this chicken? And 0 people responded in the positive. I thought they were going to be like, finally, Eric said something. We've been waiting on it. And as it turns out, I was just mildly hallucinating this chicken sound.
So wait, when your inner voice goes away, all that's left is a mental chicken?
Mine, yes, specifically. and so like I kept sort of like having this mental loop of the damn chicken sound, and like what my responsibility around the alpine chicken was. And then as you get up to the top, like it's your brain is completely gone. And as you sort of see the sun rising over the bowing monks, it's such an otherworldly experience, because I mean, I'm an author, and so a lot of the way that I interact with the world is how do I put this into words to sort of crystallize it for sharing with others at some point. And since there's no inner monologue there, there's no capacity. It's like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life is going into your eyes, and there's no words to catch it. And so you just it was like you experience the sort of beauty of it, almost like it hits your soul directly. So you'd look at it and just like explode into these goosebumps, and like you have to like kind of look away because it's just so glorious to see the sun rising over endless mountains.
It sounds like you were able to get some words for it
later on, as soon as I stopped yelling about chickens.
Go ahead. What were you?
Oh yeah, no, as soon as I stopped yelling about chickens, like the words came back. But then like we got to the top, and since it was Christmas, like our guides had like dressed up in Santa suits, and that is a way to make you feel like you're really doubting reality, because Tanzanian Santa does not look like Santa from children's books.
Yeah. Oh yeah, isn't Tanzanian Santa like, isn't he more of like a surfer or something? I know there's
There is some other tradition there, but they literally like were just like our Tanzanian guides with like big white beards and like red Santa suits, just sort of dancing around near like on the like at the summit of the thing, and you're like, what the fuck is happening?
That's also I feel like anytime I've done like hiked as part of like a program, or like my parents have talked about this, they've done like rafting trips down the Grand Canyon and stuff. It's like those guides, by just doing something as small as the effort of packing these Santa suits and whipping them out, it's always like, to me, that's like trip magic or something.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the smallest gesture, but at the same time, it is such a beautiful gesture that makes everything more fun. Like,
they're such heroes, really.
Yeah.
Like, and you know how much, like, especially on you know, big climbs or rafting trips and stuff like that, like literally your life is in their hands, and that's why these guides are always like so eternally chill.
Like my parents, there's this iconic trip they talk about where they rafted down the Grand Canyon with my grandpa. It had always been his dream to do that. And then
so sick. I've always wanted to do that.
Oh, they always recommend it. Like one of the best trips of their life. And then one of the guys whipped out a bagpipe, and he was playing the bagpipe like in the canyon. So it was just like bouncing off of the walls. And they said it was like truly the most beautiful thing they had ever heard.
Yeah, that's so cool. Oh my God. Well, that's also like one of those things too, that makes travel a kind of magic, where, you know, even something that is a bit mundane or banal, if you put it in the right circumstances, then suddenly it's this truly transcendent experience. Like, you know, if somebody's playing the bagpipe on the bagpipes, you know, on the street corner in Edinburgh, like you totally assume that's supposed to be there. But somebody whips out some bagpipes in the middle of the Grand Canyon while you're on a raft, and then suddenly like it's the most transcendent thing that you've ever experienced.
Yeah, it's so fun. Or you whip out a Santa Claus costume on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. It's like, boom. I love the like mashup quality of that. Like this plus this, somehow magic.
Yeah, it's like, because ultimately the thing that you're going for, and the thing that I think is so important for people to understand when they're starting to travel, is that you're there to make relationships and memories. You're not there to take pictures of interesting sandwiches. You're not there to, you know, have a picture of you pretending to hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Obviously do that. That's you know,
I do
iconic.
Look back at my photos of interesting sandwiches. I do like I do love those, but that's not why I'm there. I'm there
presumably
to eat the sandwich.
You were eating that interesting sandwich.
But then it is nice to remember that sandwich.
That's
Guys,
right.
I have to take this segue though, because our next question is, what is the tastiest thing you've eaten on a trip? So what is the tastiest sandwich?
Okay. Man, this one is a toss up for me, because I had something dethroned, like my tastiest experience dethroned very recently. So it's vying.
Okay, let's hear both.
It's in the category of unusual meats, just so we're all clear. So a camel burger was, or like a camel steak. I had quite a few of those in Somaliland. Remarkably good meat. Like it was
really.
It's like the beef that you've always wanted. It's like all the beefiness with none of the sort of like toughness or gristle that comes with, like, you know, a overcooked steak. So and it also was really versatile. So like I would go to this hotel, which is sort of fortified and has, like, you know, armed guards and bomb gates and stuff. And they cook a mean camel burger there, and that was really spectacular. But most recently, I had a type of whale, which is apparently legal in this place called Svalbard. Do you know Svalbard?
Yeah, it's on my I really want to go to Svalbard. Yeah. It looks awesome.
100% recommend.
Yeah.
So I was up there for my buddy's bachelor party just recently. I convinced my friends to do his bachelor party as running a half marathon up in Svalbard.
Wow. You just run from polar bears?
It's the only marathon in the world with polar bear guards. So
yeah.
Whoa.
All the aid stations just have like dudes with shotguns and ladies with shotguns. Everybody is required outside of the town of Longyearbyen to carry a shotgun on them, just because. So it's like one of the only places in the world where like firearms are required by law in case of polar bear attack, basically.
I really want to see it. I want to go see the Northern Lights there.
I've heard, at least from the locals, what I heard was the best time to go there is actually March. So we were there during Arctic summer, and that is so serious. Like the sun never even looked like it was going to try and set the entire time. And that is really crazy to experience when you've been, drinking at awesome Arctic bars with a bunch of like coal miners, and then you emerge into like the noonday sun and it's 3 a.m.
God.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, but what was the deal with this whale meat?
Yes, the whale. So it was a certain type of whale that they have up there. And I can't remember what it's called. But whatever, like people, and I certainly had various like ideas of what whale would taste like. I kind of thought that maybe it'd be either like a swordfish steak or something like a I don't know, like a super red meat, almost like a bison or something. But it was super black meat, which sounds gross and weird. But it tasted like the most like the best qualities of salmon, just times 10. So I had it in like carpaccio. It was like a whale carpaccio, and then I had a whale. It was like a sort of almost like on a crispy salad type of thing. But it was spectacular, and it was served with like some burrata and like golden raisins, and just so good.
Do you focus on food when you travel? Is that like one of your, it sounds like you have a lot of reasons that you travel. Like you're not like
I've been trying to focus on it more. Because frankly I should, but like so much of my experience, my real travel experience is just being an absolute poor dirtbag backpacker. So much so that like I still carry like bouillon cubes on me when I travel anywhere. So it's like, because it's like, oh, if I have warm water, I have a full meal because I can have some chicken broth. So like more often than not, I'm kind of like going to local markets and buying whatever I can to sort of subsist on. But I'm trying now to sort of be a bit more gastronomically inclined, I suppose. Like I went to a really cool cocktail bar in Cologne because a friend who's in the wine industry was like, go here, and oftentimes like I said, nobody needs to twist my arm into going or doing anything. So, like a stranger from the internet said I should go here, so I'm here now. Like, and it was great. It was super cool.
Cool. Yeah. Does
that make up a lot of your, like, are you traveling to a place for a specific food? Like, will you go to, I don't know, like Napoli just for like that real ass Napolitan? Yeah, I'm gonna let you do that.
Yeah. Generally, no, but I will. Like, I'm not like going to a place for the food, but if I go to a place and has bad food, that is often, it does affect my time there. And I will go to places for certain foods.
We're also vegetarians. So
that
definitely like plays a role in like it's hard to get amped to go somewhere where you're not going to be able to really eat the local cuisine, or like to kind of like just be eating pasta a lot.
I was gonna say, yeah, that must be difficult. I mean, would you guys ever sort of go on like, you know, vegetarian bonanza in like India or
We've
like
talked
maybe,
about
I have,
Yeah.
India and Lebanon were my favorite places to eat.
Oh, you went to
as a
Lebanon. I
vegetarian.
love
Yeah.
Lebanon.
I love the food in. I spent 3 months in Beirut. Like,
No
and
way.
just
Oh my
like
God.
ate so much good food.
Dude,
So,
wait, what neighborhood were you living in Beirut?
oh god,
Jamaisi?
no, the Hamra.
Hamra.
And,
Yeah, cool.
yeah, just kind of like my plan was to go to Damascus,
Yeah.
but I had to like the war had just started, and
So
so I
this was like
kinda, like, waiting.
2011 or 2013?
12.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Well, not cool for them, but you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So it sucks you couldn't go to Damascus.
I know. I was kind of waiting out the war.
Yeah.
I like how you're like, yeah, it'll be over pretty soon, I think.
Just
2 weeks
Just checking your watch.
It's kind of
Yep.
like waiting out the pandemic where you're like, this is just going to take 2 weeks. I'm
I
pretty sure.
know.
Yeah. All we need
Yeah.
is some elbow grease, and we're gonna solve this pretty quick.
We'll figure this out.
They got it.
Yeah.
It's such a Lebanon is such a special place. It's one of my
incredible.
If I wasn't living in Albania, I'd probably live in Lebanon, to be honest. It's one of my favorite. Beirut is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Same.
I think that the types of cities that I like the most are cities where it's like they can't help but be very honest to you. Like the cities that I hate are like, you know, Dubai and Las Vegas, where it's like the city is there to lie to you. And it's like the relationship you have with that city is very, very clear. You are a consumer and the city is going to sell you things, and you get exactly what you pay for. But you know, in a city like Lebanon, like Erbil, like Tirana is certainly the same way. You have a city that is so welcoming to foreigners, just because it's like that what most people are doing there are not being tourists. People are just living their lives, and you're able to easily sort of like fold into that area.
Yep. Yeah. Everybody I met there was so friendly. Like, it's an incredible spot, and
it's
the vegetarian food is solid. It's great.
Yes, they have like there's also one of my favorite yoga studio in the world. Shout out to Sarvam Yoga. That's a fantastic yoga studio out there.
Really?
Yeah. And one time, so I was there sort of as a fledgling reporter, so I was just trying to write about stuff in the Middle East for a while, because the book So You're Not Here was originally going to be a travel log. I was like, I'm going to write a travel log about the Middle East, but it's not going to be political. And then I was like, I realized very quickly that's like trying to write Moby Dick without ever like using the word whale or the letter E.
Because Beirut is nothing but politics.
But it's so.
I mean, there's so much else, but
and it's so
like,
honest that way too, because it's like nobody's sort of doing is sort of like dancing around, you know, whatever your opinions or your political questions are. They're so upfront and curious about it that like nobody is guessing where anybody stands. So like I was talking with I was outside of this bar. Well, it wasn't a bar, it was a tea shop. And it was in the more like Hezbollah side of things. Yeah. And you know, somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're American." I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Well, we're Hezbollah supporters." So I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And you know, like, and they're like, "I hate America." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like, you want to talk some?" And it's like, even that it's like that kind of honesty is so sort of like refreshing. It's like, okay, you maybe between the two of us, we can figure out like things that we don't directly hate.
Is there an attitude too of like, because him coming up to you and being like, I hate Americans, is there this like undercurrent of like, so change my mind? Or
Maybe.
Like, are people down to be challenged and to change their mind, or are they more just like, hey, I hate Americans, I just need you to know that, and now I'm gonna go on with my day?
I
I
think,
finally get a chance to tell an American this.
Yeah, I just have to get something off my chest.
I think more often than not, the people in the world who are the absolute best at understanding that people are not their governments are people in the Middle East.
Yes.
You know, they're so open and so curious, where it's like in the States anyway, we're very quick to write somebody off if they have like a slightly different opinion about, you know, any number of a laundry list of things. But in, you know, the Middle East, where people are used to incredible like tension that's based on their governments making making decisions that they don't even want their governments to make, they're more than willing to meet you halfway. And I think that there is this sort of general, like when people will like ask me about traveling, like, oh, what's it like to travel as a solo guy? What's it like for women who are traveling solo? Things like that. Don't they all hate us? And it's like the answer is no. Like, and for the most part, people outside of the US are so good at like meeting you halfway if you're willing to be open to questions and to also criticism. And I think the one of my biggest pet peeves too is when Americans like sort of turn into this like self-flagellating American martyr, where they come in and they're like, oh, we're so bad, aren't we? Oh, we did so many bad things. Like, I think I was sort of doing that at one point when I was talking with this Iraqi journalist. She's Iraqi Canadian, and I made some comment about that, and she's like, you know, we also have problems that like you didn't cause. And I was like, I know, but like here's the thing: when you are talking about how America is the center of every problem in the Middle East, you're putting yourself at the center again. It doesn't matter that you.
It's the like negative. Isn't it called like negative narcissism a little bit? Where it's still, That's
exactly right. And so when Americans are like, oh God, I'm just such a dumb American, like tell me about it. It's like you're not actually like interacting with somebody and wanting an honest answer to your question. You want them to be like, no, it's okay, we don't hate you. Like prove people wrong, you know, be open and get willing to have uncomfortable questions lobbed at you, because on the other side of those uncomfortable questions is usually a pretty cool friend, or at least a weird discussion. Like afterwards.
Oh, I was gonna say, and also be interested in them. You know, like
after I was done talking with, you know, my new friends from Hezbollah, like we were like outside of this, like they were playing music, and they were playing that song Bulletproof by like LaRue. And at one point the guy's like, I love this song. I just want to go dance. Let's just stop talking about politics and let's go dance. And I'm like, yeah, let's go dance to this song. And we did. And it's like, I'm dancing with Hezbollah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That's gonna be clipped now, and now I can't run for president.
I know, dancing. Yeah. Did you know he danced with Hezbollah?
And like Bulletproof cuts in and underscores it.
Yeah. Okay, so Eric, next question is, so we don't it sounds like you don't necessarily seek out tourist attractions, but when you have, which one has totally lived up to the hype?
I mentioned it earlier, but certainly Mount Kilimanjaro. Totally, 100%. It has so many of the things that you want in a great travel experience, in terms of you know, you're outdoors, you're meeting strangers, you're having pretty remarkable experiences, and it's just stupid gorgeous. And also you just get long periods of time with locals to just like talk to them about Tanzanian culture. So yeah, and I think that's one of those things too, that like I love a travel experience where you have to specifically like work at it before you go, so that you get a chance to think about it and sort of like be in the shoes of your experience. So like as you're kind of like physically training every day, you're thinking like, wow, if I put in a lot of work right now, it's going to be so much easier on the mountain. And so like every single day you're thinking about that trip that you're gonna be on.
Yeah, you're building up the anticipation.
Word.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna move on to the next question because I'm really curious about this one with you, Eric. What has been your biggest fish out of water moment? Do you still get those kind of moments like in all your travels? Like, and do you have many of these moments? I imagine. Yeah.
I mean, the year of living statelessly was basically one extended fish out of water time. But I think that probably the biggest experience of that was so as I mentioned before, I ended up being asked to be the ambassador from Liberland to Somaliland, and as that was the case, I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do you need me to do as ambassador? And the president of Liberland was like, well, you have two jobs. You need to like buy furniture for the embassy. And I was like, okay, sweet. And then they were like, you need to make diplomatic and the political ties with the government of Somaliland. And I was like, okay, good. Sounds like, yep, I know how to do that.
Tight. Do they like bulletproof and dancing to it?
Yeah, because like I gotcha if that's what they're into. And so this was like one extended fish out of the water thing, because one, I'm not an ambassador. I just met a bunch of crypto nerds on a houseboat party in the middle of the Danube, and they're like, you look sturdy, we'll send you to Somaliland. Don't die. And so I was basically just like placed into an empty 9-bedroom mansion in Somalia with like a single bed in it. And I had like an armed guard named Eid. And so suddenly I was a person who people were looking at as somebody with political power. And like I said, I'm a dirtbag backpacker a day before, and now I'm living in a mansion in northern Somalia, and I have to like make diplomatic ties, and I'm also in a place which is not exactly the safest in the world.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, I have to fake it until I make it, basically. So I was just like, I'll say things that I think diplomats say. And so I went to the vice president of Somaliland with my my translator, and we sat down, and I was just like sort of astounded and watching myself having this like out of body experience, as they said, like so much political nonsense that I thought that a diplomat would say. And I was like, we at Liberland are joining you in the path of self-determination in the world, and that is why, like, just speaking in insane ways that I would never ever like, and doing like little political fist pump thing. And at the end of it, like, everybody's like shaking their heads and nodding and being like, yes, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I'm like, thank you, Mr. President. And we all shook hands and like did bows and stuff like that. And I left, and I was like, I think I got it. I think I'm an ambassador. And then the next day, a cyclone blew through northern Somalia, and the internet was kind of wiped out in the area. And when the internet came back on, it didn't hit my area, so I didn't know anything was wrong. The internet came back on, and my family and girlfriend at the time were really freaked out because it was like all in the news. It was like cyclone Somalia, and they couldn't get into contact with me. But one of the first people who called me was the Secretary of State of Liberland, and he's like, well, we're glad that you're okay, and this is great for Liberland. And I was like, why is this great for Liberland? And they're like, well, we're going to give diplomatic aid because we're the only ones with a team on the ground. No other country has a team on the ground. And I was like, oh, sweet. Where's our team? And they're like, you're the...
So go clean up after the cyclone.
I was I was just like, oh
Like,
my God. Okay,
what?
so
Yeah.
now I have to like buy furniture and also figure out how to give humanitarian relief. And I was like, how are we going to get money into this country? Like the fiscal system of Somaliland is notoriously rough. It really boils down to like a dude on a motorbike, like bringing blocks of depreciated bills to another dude on a motorbike. So it's like, how are you going to get money to buy diplomatic aid? And so, Bitcoin, they transferred $15,000 to a businessman in the area. This all sounds shady, and if it does sound shady, it was. And then his secretary just like handed me 15 grand for the aid and the furniture, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to do aid. And so we bought like 7 tons of food, and my dear colleague, a guy named Abdul Rahman, who's sadly passed, incredible human being, he was like, okay, well, we've got the food, and the food has gone out to where the nomads are, the affected area of the cyclone. I was like, awesome, cool. And then he's like, now we have to go out there. And I was like, but why? The food is already out there. Can't they just like have the food and eat the food? And like, isn't that the thing? And he's like, no, like it's aid. You have to like go get pictures of you giving them the food. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, I feel bad.
Yeah.
Eric, haven't you watched Veep? That should have been your ambassador training.
It's amazing that you're not the first person who's asked me this. Because it seems that my experience remarkably mirrors that of Veep. But like we literally like drove out in the desert for like 8 hours with an armed convoy, just so I could stand in the middle of the desert and like be like, Liberland says, here's your food. And it was like the worst. So the fish out of water, not only like being in the middle of the Somali desert, which is just nothing but it's just like Land Before Time mixed with like Dr. Seuss landscapes, like just trees that don't make sense, and just mountains that are like just weird angles, just shooting up everywhere, and camels and baboons, and just like the landscape just looks like you're in another dimension. And sitting there with Abdul Rahman, waiting for nomads to join us again, and I was like, where are the nomads? And he's like, oh, well, they're at a funeral because like somebody died of cholera today. And I'm like, I don't know if we need to do a photo shoot today, because this seems like a tough day and I feel real weird. He's like, no, it's fine, it's good, we're gonna go to
the funeral and get your pictures there.
Yeah, it's exactly. And I was just like, okay. And so just feeling not only out of whack as like frankly a fake ambassador, but also
as a human being,
as much of a real ambassador as I was also being a fake humanitarian, because it's like, this is just establishing soft power, and it's for political recognition.
Yeah.
And that made me feel real icky.
So how did you leave the ambassadorship? Like, and how long were you an ambassador for? Like, I don't even know what quitting as an ambassador looks like.
Sending an email to the president.
Did you give 2 weeks?
No, I think I gave him 1 week. I was offered the position full time.
How much did it pay? Can I ask that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 0. It paid me well. I should correct that. I received 8. I think it's 6,000 Liberlandian merits, which is great. I mean, because it's gonna go to the moon, guys.
Yeah.
And,
awesome.
And the ability to be a full citizen of Liberland. Hello. And I think that was all. Like at the very end, because I had money left over in the treasury, and I was so I came back from my stateless year, and I think I had literally $28 in the world at all. Writing books is not a great way to get rich. But I was like, I had all of this like Bitcoin dollar, Bitcoin had turned into dollars in Somalia, and I was like, oh my God, like I could just walk away with a couple $100, which would really help me. But I was like, I will not, in my 6 weeks of being a politician, immediately become a corrupt politician. I cannot do this. This is like, then this is why I cannot be like a real politician. But like, maybe it was just because it was like so hot. And I was so frightened for 6 weeks while I was an ambassador. When they offered me the position full time, I was like, yes, I will do it. I deserve to be a politician. And I'm going on behalf of Liberland to save Somaliland. And I'm like, down this way lies colonialism. And the last thing anybody needs is me wandering around the country being like, what can Bitcoin do for you?
God. I love that you did like get to play through it long enough to be like, oh, I see how this is a trap for people.
It was amazing how immediately it happened, where like the first time, like, because frankly, it's really goofy to like go, like the first time I called myself an ambassador, like I was trying to go open a bank account at one of the banks in the area. And the guy, like, I was like as serious as possible. I was like, I am the ambassador to Liberland, to Somaliland on behalf of Liberland, and I would like to use your bank, Dobshi Bank, as the official treasury place of Liberland in Somaliland. And the guy just kind of started laughing, and then he was like, I want you to go to the office and find the man with the biggest desk, and I want you to tell him exactly what you just told me. And I was like, I will.
Oh, no.
Like, marched up to his office, and the guy was like waiting there, because I'm assuming that like he was already like giggling, because like I'm sure that he knew that something really strange was coming his way. And so like I told him the whole spiel, and at the end, like I opened the official like Liberland bank account, which we ended up not being able to use anyway. But like immediately upon even like calling myself an ambassador, I was like, or like, when you're meeting with a vice president and like the ambassador of I think she was the ambassador to Canada on behalf of Somaliland. It's like people are just treating you with respect that you have not earned in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Like up until a week before, I was like counting my pennies in order to buy enough bouillon to have broth later on down the road. So like, it was.
But then people treat you that way, and you're like, oh, I forgot. I should be respected.
Yeah. You're like, maybe this is how I've always deserved to be treated, with like absolute deference, even though I've done zero things. Like, God. And I don't know, I can understand why politics attracts certain people, because it's like, you don't have to do much and suddenly everybody just loves you.
It does fill a certain hole that a lot of people have inside of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, add some cool suits and lots of money on top of that. Hell yeah, I'll be an ambassador again.
God, well, I feel like we could talk about this forever, but
and this is a podcast, our podcast, first in our podcast, having a ambassador.
I know, so, it's a huge moment for us at the National
Travel and Tourism Office.
Yeah,
I hope that fortunately I've abdicated my position, so I'm not breaking any.
We never told you our secret agent names.
Oh,
we forgot that part. I know, it's been a second. Okay, so I mean, I'm secret agent sticky toffee pudding. That's my favorite dessert.
That's good. Yeah,
and I'm secret agent pannekuchen because I'm Dutch.
I was gonna say that's
Dutch pancakes.
Pannekuchen.
Mm-hmm.
I was just in the Netherlands.
Oh yeah.
I was there 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I love Amsterdam.
I know, we do too. Yeah, she has family there. We try to get there as much as we can.
This is probably a vicious stereotype, but are you super tall?
Dude, it's a sore subject. I am okay, wait, but you have to hear me out.
Wow,
okay.
this is you're making a
So,
turn.
Yeah.
I am 5'5". I am the shortest of my siblings. My brother is 6'3", which isn't, it's not that tall, but my family, our last name is Van Ness, and we are related to the tallest family in the world, which are the Van Nesses who live in Britain.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, it does run in my family. And also we have some family who's farming corn in Tennessee. A lot of the Dutch came over to the US to like do agriculture.
Yeah.
So they're in Tennessee, and my dad has taken pictures with them, and it's like he goes up to their waist, and my dad is like 6 foot, and they're all like, I don't know, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". It's so goofy looking.
Whenever I go to the Netherlands, I just like I feel like a rugrat. Like I'm I feel like I can barely order a drink at a bar because I have to like, hang off of it. And nobody knows that I'm actually there because everybody's just like looking over me, and I'm like 5'10", 5'11",
which is
a long day.
Respectable. Yeah, no, my Oma was like 5'3", like short. Yeah. So I don't know what happened to my family.
You had to become funny because you're not a Dutch giant.
Yeah. Black sheep. So had to get people to pay attention to me somehow.
That's right. Yeah. I'm glad.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I was going to ask, so if you could step into any moment from your travels, anytime you wished, which quintessential perfect moment would you pick?
Oh, okay. I should worry about this more often, but since there are photos, I don't worry about it that much. There are a lot of semi-ridiculous travel stories that I have that sound made up, and I don't worry about that for the most part. But this particular story, I feel like sounds the fakest, but was the realest. And there is no photo evidence of this. And it's very simple, but it was like a perfect moment in time. I was in Kathmandu, and I was just hanging out at this at the hostel, and ended up chatting with some of the locals in the area, and at one point one of the guys was like, "Do you want to come play snooker?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And he's like, "Okay, sweet, get him on the back of my motorcycle and we're gonna go play snooker." And I'm like, "I don't know how to play snooker." And he's like, we'll teach you. So it just went into deep Kathmandu, which just kind of looks like this MC Escher painting of pathways and like box apartments and concrete and just humans everywhere. And you don't quite know because there are like no real storefronts. So there's just things that you enter, and then suddenly you're in a bar or you're in a restaurant or you're in whatever. And so we went to this sort of corrugated tin shack that was also a snooker hall. I was clearly the only non-Nepali in there, very apparently right away. And so, I drew some attention, and maybe 20 Nepali guys were all just like standing around, like making vague eye contact with me, and then just started staring at me. And I was like, that's regular. I mean, I'm clearly not a local. And so my buddy, he like showed me how, like, the general rules for how to play snooker. And so certain balls, from what I remember, are like higher value, and you have to hit like one ball in, and then you have to hit a red ball, and then like another ball, and then a red ball. And that's kind of how you go along. And so like 20 Nepali guys were like all staring at me, and I was like, I'm just gonna hit it hard so that I get some respect in these streets. so that they're like, man, that guy who wasn't from here, he can really hit some balls. And so I was like not aiming particularly, but I just like hit the ball as hard as I could, and it just like slammed the highest value ball right into the corner pocket. And there was like this audible gasp from like all of the like Nepali guys. And it was as if I was like this like snooker hustler that was just about to ensnare my friend. And I think that is the coolest I've ever felt.
I've got to say, I've got to call this out. We've had a lot of people on this podcast. A lot. We've had like...
You're like 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot. And consistently, dudes will choose a moment where they were the hero of their own story, and they were so fucking cool. And they did like the cool thing that like James Bond or Indiana Jones would do in a movie. It's like we had somebody else who said they like won an arm wrestling competition.
Oh yeah,
dude, that sounds dope.
But it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
It's so charming though that like every guy just wants to be so cool.
We want to be cool.
Absolutely. Like and especially like when I mean, I don't know, Garrett, maybe you were, captain of the lacrosse team or something.
I
was on him on the Zoom frame.
I was on competitive ballet team in high school, so I never really had that touchdown pass moment in my life. And in the moment between that, like the ball sailing directly into the pocket, and the audible gasp, and them thinking falsely that I was awesome. I was like, I can die here now. I fulfilled my journey as a man.
Yeah, we grew up watching these movies, seeing these examples of manhood on TV, of masculinity, and it's like, when we do achieve that for a brief second, it's exciting.
It's like in your head when you've had like a super foolish argument with somebody, and then you come back to like, and you like in your head, you're like, if I had said this at that time, and it's like you can just revel in how cool you would have been.
Yeah, but this one you actually hit it. And how did they treat you afterwards? Were they like, this guy's cool, buy him a beer? Or did
you quickly like knock in the wrong ball? And
it deteriorated rapidly. Like it was very clear that was a lucky shot within seconds. So you asked me about wanting to step into a moment, and that quite literally would be a moment where I was like, I've never had larger balls.
I'm so sorry, I just have to share this because I was thinking about this sketch recently, but I think it sums up this feeling for a lot of men. There's this sketch somebody wrote, and they were at a funeral, and they were a karate instructor, and they had punched a kid so hard they killed him, and they're like talking at the funeral, and the guy just kind of keeps being like, but it's pretty crazy. I was so strong. I punched this kid so hard he died.
I call these like these manacies, where it's man fantasies, where they're so like they're like fanfic, but about your own life, of just you being so kick-ass, where every once in a while, like I was at a 10-day meditation retreat, a silent meditation retreat in South Africa a couple years ago, and I noticed that like obviously you're sitting there meditating for like 10 hours and 45 minutes a day, and like sometimes you're communing with with the cosmos, and releasing all of your past trauma, and suddenly you being like realizing that that everything is everything, and you are all one, and you are right here. But then sometimes you're like, and then if there were 2 burglars in my apartment, what I do is I'd slide on my knees, boom, take the one out on the leg, elbow to the throat. All right, I've got him, bring him up, suddenly bang, he's a human shield.
And you're doing this in the middle of the silent
I'm
retreat.
literally like having the most vivid
how would I beat these burglars?
Yeah. And then I was just like, I kept adding burglars, and I'm like, okay, so but what if they had a bat?
That is awesome.
Like it just kept getting more detailed, and I was like, I should probably be meditating right now. But what about the burglars?
I've had very similar fantasies.
Yeah. Or it's like when you're on an airplane and you're like, oh no, it's been hijacked by terrorists. How are we gonna do something? And I'm always on the side of we're gonna like somehow take the folding table off the back and then like whip it like a frisbee, bam.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's why a movie like Taken is so satisfying. That's like we all dream about being Liam Neeson.
Total male power fantasy of just like, there are like, these people are 100% wrong and I am 100% right.
Well, this makes me sad about my own daydreaming in inner life, because I'll sit on a plane and just be pissed that the guy next to me is taking my armrest for like 3 hours. And my fantasy is just like imagining saying something.
I'm gonna speak up for myself.
And it's not even that. I'm just, well, maybe a little bit, where I'm like, I'm gonna tell him. It's kind of a rule that it should be my armrest, and I'm gonna tell him.
I don't want to insinuate myself into your fantasy life at all. But all I'm saying is, every once in a while, just like give yourself permission to add a throat chop or two into your fantasy life, and it will be a game changer.
I know. I'm like, I'm being a little too defensive in my fantasy life, because also you talking about the burglars, like I'll spend hours picturing how I'm gonna get away from a rapist, not how I'm gonna like beat his ass. you know?
Yeah. And it's like every time I'm engaged in any of this thinking, I am giving myself skills that I do not possess and have never even attempted to possess. It's as if I'm just like, I'm secretly a piano virtuoso in combat, and I just have never known it because I've never been pushed to the limit.
Well, and I wonder if every guy thinks he's secretly Jason Bourne or something. Like they're like,
the answer is yes.
It just hasn't been the moment, you know?
Yeah. I actually had this happen. This would be the first time I've talked about it publicly, but feel free to cut if you like. But I while I was in South Africa right after the meditation retreat, I was attacked, not directly after the meditation retreat, but like it was a couple weeks afterwards. I was just hiking, and street crime is quite common in Cape Town, and it's also quite common along some of the trails. And it was so surreal, because it's like I've been through a lot of different countries and had a lot of challenging experiences, to say the least, and sometimes dangerous ones, but this was like the most direct one. So like I got cut with a knife across the head.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, and there's some articles about it if you Google my name with some really bombastic headlines, but yeah, it was one of these moments. So like I immediately like ran away, which was the right thing to do.
Not how the fantasy had played out, though.
Well, hold on. So I ran away, and it was near the base of Table Mountain. ran away, and then it's a mountain, so it's angled,
You're
and
trying to run away and you're getting really tired.
I wish I had run
uphill.
up.
Oh no, okay,
I was running down, and so I ran down, and then quickly fell. So I ran maybe, I don't know, 50 feet, and then immediately turned from running into like rolling down the hill, and like it was just such a nightmare circumstance, because like as I was rolling, like my glasses fell off, so I'm like blind. And then I had like at least a metal thermos and to like maybe protect myself with, and at this point I didn't realize that I was bleeding from the head, and because I was just so sort of jacked on adrenaline. Anyway, I looked back, and the attacker was still coming towards me. So we had to fight one another, and
did he have a knife still?
Yeah. It was really strange circumstance, because he sort of positioned himself under me on the mountain. Like I stood up and was kind of clutching my bag, and he wanted my stuff. And since I had I had also had my card stolen previously, if he had got my phone, I would have no way to pay for anything, no way to get back to my apartment. No, and I was also blind and bleeding. So like I was in a way. And since he was sort of below me on the thing, he had the knife up, and he's like, give me your shit. And I was like, okay, but you have to help me find my glasses first. Because it's just like, this is a good bargain. Like I get to see and you get my things. And he was like, okay, where are your glasses? And I was like, I think they're down there. And so like, as he started looking, he like kind of dropped the knife a little bit. I was like, that's like, stupid. You're kind of a day one mugger, I guess. And so he like dropped the knife, and he was looking, and I was like, they're right there, but they weren't right there. And so he dropped the knife again, and I kicked him in the face, and then we started fighting, which is like so strange when you're just two adult men who can stop fighting at any time and just get up and just leave, but you are still just like doing combat with each other. And so I was like, wrestling him, and I wrestled the knife out of his hands. And sorry if this gets too dark for your podcast, but
no.
So I was on top of the gentleman, and then I realized that he was sort of covered in blood, and I was like, oh my God, that's not good. And then I was like, oh, it's mine. And I realized I had this really big cut in my head from the knife. And so immediately I was like, I've got to get off of this mountain. I have no idea how bad this wound is or whatever is going on. So like I have to just end this somehow. And his hand had been hurt sufficiently to make him stop. And then first time admitting this publicly, he was like, I have to give my bosses something, and he started crying, and then I started crying, and like I was just like on top of this man in the middle of like Table Mountain, and we were both like weeping and covered in blood, and I'm like, this is a weird Saturday at 3 p.m. Like, what is happening? And so I got off of it, like, you can't come and try and follow me. And he's like, I'm not gonna. And he's like, I've gotta bring back something to my boss or whatever. And I gave him like a jacket and like a half pack of cigarettes, and I was like, that's all you get. And then ran away.
Oh my God.
Into like the nearest neighborhood, just covered in blood, and crying. It's
like the line between men and little boys is so fine. Like where it's almost like you guys like shifted back and forth. Like we're fighting, we're men, and then it's like, help me find my glasses, and then it's like we're fighting, we're men again, and then it's like we're both so sad.
Like, well, as a part of that too, where it's like I noticed that there were certain, so when I called various friends of mine after that whole thing went down, obviously, just to kind of like talk about what had happened, because I didn't have any friends in South Africa, close friends anyway. And so I got like roughly 2 responses from guys. Like one was like, oh, that's badass, you kicked that guy's ass, yeah, you can high fives. And that was deeply inaccurate to like what my experience was, which was like, I feel humiliated because we just were hurting one another, like for no reason, for zero reason. And like for a cell phone, like if his knife had been a little bit sharper, like I would be dead. And that was the sort of the most jaw-dropping thing. And then I had some friends who were like, you know, conflict correspondents, and they immediately understood. And they were like, yeah, you're gonna feel real weird for the next couple of days because you had a really close brush with death here. And yeah, like you're gonna feel kind of humiliated by it. And it's like, while in my fantasy life, like me, like, you know, doing a bunch of judo on some burglars is just so righteous, like the actual experience of it was, I mean, really horrifying. But like, I don't know, I wanted it to, as we were talking about earlier, having some kind of violent experience or an experience where you're in mortal danger. It's like you have to make that useful for yourself or for others, or else it was just like a bad thing that happened once. And like one of the things that was super helpful about was like it made it super clear what I kind of like had unfinished, which was specifically this book. So like this book had not come out, and I was in South Africa just trying to, you know, I was at the meditation thing because I was like in this quandary because it was like 90% done, and I was like, I just can't finish this book, and I don't know why. Like and writing stuff has always been hard, but I've always been a writer, so it was just so much more difficult than anything I'd ever done. And then after getting attacked, I was like, oh, it like nothing matters but getting this book out at this point, because the only regret that I had that was sort of neon bright at the point between him sort of coming after me with the knife and me walking away from that mountain was that I didn't have this book done. And so I'm quite grateful for the experience, but it wasn't nearly as glorious as all of my my dead burglar fantasies.
Yeah, well, I think it's there are a couple things that are pinging to me as like really fascinating. Is like, one, you came to this meditation retreat looking for the answer to your writing problem, and you found it in a totally different, like harrowing experience. And then the other thing is like in your fantasy, I think I encountered something very, very mild, but like this recently where someone stole my wallet a couple weeks ago. And I always find when my stuff is stolen, it's like really upsetting and it feels like violating or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Because you're like, who would do that to me? I'm nice. I take it so personally, even though it's so impersonal. And then like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, that sucks that they needed my wallet so much they had to steal it. They like needed that money, and that's what they need to do. And it's like, I feel like for you with that guy, and I'm like breaking into tears and being like, I actually need this. I have to bring something back. It's like, you're never thinking about why the burglars are burglaring the house.
Yeah.
And like, the reality is like, it's kind of like there are no evil people. And so it's like, when you learn the background of that guy, even in this brief exchange, it's like, I almost feel like that's what's most upsetting is like, we're all trying to get by and you felt like you needed to do this to get by. And that's as upsetting as you attacking me.
No, you're right. And it's like, it's, you know, you can replace the people in the situation, and the situation is the same. It's like, there are bad incentives that are making this happen between two totally reasonable adults that can just as easily not be harming one another on this mountain. Like, we can just stand up and walk away, and yet we're not, because of his circumstances and my circumstances. And that's so sobering, because I harbor no ill will towards him. I sincerely hope he's okay. I'm glad that I walked away from it, and I'm glad that he walked away from it too. And so it's, yeah, I think taking a moment to think about like who the other folks in that circumstance are, because like I think we all have an understanding that nobody really wants to harm anybody.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you like get your stuff taken, it does feel like a weird violation, and you're like, well, what did I do to cause this?
Yeah, I think it's also like shows that like even if we don't explicitly believe in karma, we sort of do, which is like, what did I do to deserve this? And it's like nothing
100%.
It's not
Yeah,
about me at all.
I mean, I think that there's, I think anybody who travels enough will gain a sort of superstition about this kind of thing, because it's like there is this road magic that exists that's sort of both positive and negative, where you know, a really bad thing can turn into something, you know, really incredible. I'm really grateful that I was attacked, because I really don't think that this book would exist without that. But at the same time, like I'm also so grateful for all of the like positive experiences that I've had with strangers, like the dude taking me to play snooker and me being the coolest guy ever for 5 seconds. Like in Guinness Book, just for like 5 seconds, I was the coolest guy ever just for that one snooker shot. And I think there's like that Anthony Bourdain quote too about, you know, if you don't risk the like meal that's gonna make you super sick, then you're never going to get the absolutely magical food experience that you would have never expected. And so it's like, if you consistently put out this a good intention towards your path, and you know, you trust that your aims for your travel. I mean, this is what we were talking about a bit earlier. It's like, I believe in travel as self-expression, that some people are like, well, you know, it's indulgent to be a traveler. It's because I can just go lay on a beach at home. And it's like, well, the difference between traveling and vacationing is like, traveling is supposed to challenge you. And any creative act is all about how you personally deal with those challenges. And I don't care if you're writing a book, or you're choreographing a dance, or you're making photography, like, you've set out a series of challenges in order to illuminate something that you specifically have questions about. And so when people like are trying to plan a trip, the first thing I usually ask them is, you know, what questions do you have? Like, what are you particularly interested in? And it can be something that's super political. You know, my book was all about, you know, what makes a country, and it's about living in unrecognized countries to find out what a country is. But you can easily do that with other things. Like, if you have a question about, you know, what makes family? Why is family critical? Then you go to a really communal culture. You know, you go to the Balkans. If you have a question about how does landscape make culture, you go to Mongolia. And the more personalized that question is, the more salient it is to you, the more you're going to get back from the road, and the more that the road will unveil truly great relationships and truly great secrets to you. Like, I went to South Africa to do the meditation retreat, because I was worried that I was never going to be a writer again. And because I had finished grad school and nobody wanted the book, and it was going to be a documentary series for a while, and that got canned. And I was like, and immediately after getting so close, I was like, I'm going to put this away in the drawer, and it's just never going to go anywhere. But because of that, I was like, can't write any other project. Like, I was writing for work, but I was like, so that
you were like heartbroken a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that apparatus was sort of dead in me, and I missed it a lot. And I remember thinking after meditation camp, meditation camp after I
Some
call
cool
it that.
counselors.
Yeah.
They're really cool. I mean, they really just sit there quietly all day, but like, I'm pretty sure they're pretty dope.
In your head, you're like, my dudes, every morning.
There's like the closest to a counselor you get there's like a monk that meditates at you. And that's it. That's the end of your relationship. Like you can speak to ask the monk a question for like once a day, but you can only ask about meditation. And so while I was there, I remember thinking, like, after it was done, I was like, okay, I've done it, and like I want to figure out how to be a writer again. And you put out questions into the universe or desires into the universe, especially while you're traveling, and it's like you might not like the way that you get the answer to that. And in some ways I do feel like the answer to that was my run with this gentleman on the mountain. Very grateful for it. But it's like if you make those intentions clear and ask those questions of the road, it will answer you.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, we have one more question. And then I was thinking before the lightning round, or after the lightning round, before we go into planning your trip.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to know what question you're currently mulling over, so we can maybe incorporate that into
okay.
So something for you to think about in the background, or you can tell us right now. If we can probably just, I don't know.
I can tell you, I've got two kind of.
Okay.
And I don't know if they'll be. I've got like one total batshit idea for a travel book that I think I'd like to do, and then one less batshit idea, but I think both are things that I'm quite curious about. One is, I think that there is an enormous amount of like technophobia that exists right now. After working as the ambassador to Liberland, I ended up making documentaries in the cryptocurrency space. This was quite a small space, and people just heard about that crazy shit and were like, you want a job? And I'm like, all right. So I started working for crypto, and there's a lot of conversations that happen in that space between between AI, between Web3, and I find that there are entrepreneurs that are out there that are telling you how much better your life is going to be with Web3, and then there's the rest of us who are like, I don't think I want any of that.
Yeah.
And like AI, and you're like, think about all you can do with AI. I'm like, I'm still dealing with phones. And so I kind of wanted to go to various places in the world where the future is already happening, or the future is like these technologies are having these really sort of pro-human effects, where we're using technology to help us be more human, or perhaps raise people out of poverty, as some people say that it's doing. Because I don't know, I think in major Western countries, we're kind of looking down the barrel of this, train that we never bought a ticket to get on. And we're like, this doesn't look like it's going any place good, but like, it's not stopping. So I kind of started doing this a bit with going to Svalbard. So I went to the Global Seed Vault up there, which is this vault where they keep all of the world's biodiversity in this like literally a coal mine. And alongside that, they have something called the Global Memory Project, and that is where they keep like all of the critical data of the world. And they're talking about like storing it on DNA at some point, because they're like, well, cellulose and USB drives are going to decay after a couple hundred years. And I think that if you talk to anybody right now, which I think is kind of weird and sad, you're like, are humans going to be around in 1,000 years? And everybody's like, absolutely not. And I think that there are people in the world who are thinking, yeah, humans will be around in 1,000 years, and we need to figure out how to do that. So I wanted to go to those places and figure out a way to be less afraid of the future. And then the other one is kind of the opposite, right? There's a trail that was done between 1950 and 1970. It's called the Hippie Trail, and it went from major Western European capitals to either Calcutta or Thailand. The Beatles took it, and it was possible to do this overland for basically 20 years. It's not possible anymore. So
Afghanistan,
Iran,
right?
Yeah, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all these places. So the total batshit idea is I want to redo that trail, but using no technology from up to 1969. So no phone, no anything. Just buy a VW van and, get cooking and see if I can make it the whole way. Granted, that would need a lot of planning and financing. But the question there is like, if that sort of 1969, that sort of summer of love was seen as this like global height of positivity, what's changed in the world that like now the world has become more balkanized, that is the world a more violent place than it was back then, or does it just feel that way? Is it like have we taken a branching timeline that's actually taken us away from the world being like a positive and pro-human place, or does it just feel that way? And how many of these illusions of borders are actually accurate? Like, I've heard great things about people traveling in Afghanistan, or pardon me, Iran. I haven't heard much from Afghanistan right now recently, but Iran. So it's like,
I've heard. Yeah,
can I travel through Iran with basically in the most vulnerable state possible with like no backup plan? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
that gives us some fun jumping off points.
Yeah.
They're a little more specific, so I may pivot, but we'll see.
You do it. You pivot.
Okay. Okay. So we've got one last question, and then we have a lightning round, which we haven't told you about before.
I love a lightning round.
Yeah. Okay. Final question.
Yeah.
Is there a local custom you've observed while traveling that you have implemented or wish you'd implement into your daily life? So, for example, like Rachel and I think we use this example almost every time, but while in Germany, we fell into loving coffee and cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little
easy custom to love.
Yeah. A little afternoon, sweet and caffeine, and sets us up for the rest of the day. We don't do it all the time.
It's like a Spanish fiesta, where it's just like, when you just indulge in this like one little thing of another culture, and you're suddenly like, oh my God, you guys do this every day.
Yeah.
I think so this definitely comes from Albanian culture. I think about it two ways. So Albanians are remarkably hospitable. They are, I sort of talk about Albanian culture as like, their national martial art is like friendliness. Like it's not really a matter of if you're gonna pay for coffee, you're not paying for coffee, and like they will engage in combat with you if you try to pay for coffee. Like every Albanian household has like an extra set of pajamas just in case they have like total strangers that are gonna like sleep over, and that is fine. Like as Americans, it's oftentimes difficult for us to accept that kind of hospitality because we're a very individualistic culture, and so we think sometimes that we are if we're accepting hospitality, it feels as if like we're a hindrance on somebody else. And so it's kind of two ways. One, I try to be as hospitable as possible to strangers when they come to my home. And two, I also try to graciously accept the hospitality of others, and to not do that thing which is totally culturally appropriate for us, which is like, no, it's like, it is a type of compliment to accept the hospitality of other people, and learning how to accept hospitality is very culturally uncomfortable for Americans. But I've learned that, at least in Albanian culture, and certainly in a lot of the cultures in the Middle East, being able to accept that compliment is a sort of it's a manner that is very helpful to learn.
I love that. It's like such an act of care. It's like, I think our like rugged individualism like makes it so that we don't feel comfortable accepting care. Like I always feel like I owe someone if I let them do that for me. But I did have a friend in high school, Oksana, and her family immigrated from Ukraine. And like always going to her house was my favorite place ever, because her mom would just bombard us with food. Like you would eat something and then there would be a new thing coming out. And like, it's like, there was just so much hospitality. Like at a certain point you couldn't reject it, because like you're in the middle of one thing and you're like, no, that's okay. And there's like all of a sudden soup in your hands. But it is like,
the old Ukrainian soup hands have seen this before.
Honestly, I still think about her chicken wild rice soup. It's like the best soup I've ever had in my life. And so, yeah, I think it is like, but it is weird. Like then thinking about Oksana coming to our house and we're like, yeah, help yourself.
Right.
But like there was no like unveiling of treats. You know?
It's like, I was staying at a friend's a couple nights ago, and they're like, eat anything in the fridge, and then like from our culture, we're like, no, I'm not even gonna look at the fridge. Like, in fact, I'm gonna make sure that the fridge is more full when I leave, and I'm also gonna, and it's the sort of the dance of them, presenting hospitality to you is like that's what's expected of them culturally, and to sort of refuse that is kind of to refuse the culture. It's like it's a bit egotistical, where it's like, no, you should deal with me on my terms. I don't need to deal with you on your terms. And so learning to accept the kindness of strangers is really I think an important thing. And then to find a way to also make people understand that you deeply appreciate that. That's difficult too.
That's the exchange, is generosity and gratitude. And I've been hearing this recently, so it's something I've been thinking about a lot, but like the idea that you can only give as good as you receive. So I'm trying to be a better receiver, which I'm classically very bad at, even in terms of like sometimes like emotional support and stuff. So it's like, I think getting in the practice of receiving is very difficult, but like worthwhile as far as like feeling like you have these strong, deep connections with other people.
I think that kind of goes too for people you'll just never see again, or total strangers, where like I remember at one point there was this girl sort of like washed up in the bar that I was in, and it was really, really rainy outside in Albania, and she was sort of, she was what I was 5-10 years before, just a dirtbag aid worker, and just so underpaid, so underfed, so like I'm just trying to help things, and the world is cruel, and it's like so we're just chatting and talking about where she was on the way to next, and she got kicked back at the border of, I think it was Montenegro or somewhere, and so we were talking for a while, and then just made sure that when she was on their way out, that like her bar tab was paid, and like she had some extra Albanian money, and it's like, I will never see that person again, but I remember when that exact thing was done to me, like some random I think they were working at the American Embassy in Sarajevo, and me and my buddy were just dirt bagging our way through, and they picked up our tab without us knowing it, and like $20 extra on the road is a absolute lifesaver. Like that's the difference between sleeping outside or sleeping in a bed, and so. Yeah, like finding those moments where it's very little effort for you to help a stranger is a good practice to be in, I think. But I also think that's like this kind of selfish karmic thing that I do too, because I'm like, I've had so many close calls where I'm like, I want to make sure that like I'm I guess karmically insured against whatever the fuck else could happen.
I love that your answer is be hospitable to strangers and ours was eat cake in the afternoon.
That's a certain type of hospitality to yourself, though.
Yes, this is true. This is true.
I also do remember finding this out about Dutch culture, that like it was like because it's a big Northern European thing, and the Swedes are all about it, where there's like they call it like Kika or something. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, something Swedish. We just stop and have cake, and I'm like, you are brilliant.
I know
and they're all hot and thin.
I know.
Like Dutch breakfast is my favorite thing ever, which is just like they'll come out with a tray,
enormous,
so many cheeses and breads and spreads to put on it,
sprinkles
and,
and butter,
chocolate sprinkles. Like it's incredible, and everybody's doing fine.
I was staring at a Dutch breakfast like for a weirdly long time, just maybe 2 weeks ago, because the table could take no more. There was so many cheeses, and they're just like the hottest people just eating those cheeses and breads, and I'm like, how do you have any idea how hard it is to be a Los Angeles 4, and you're just over here being a Stockholm 7?
As you're eating all the cheese and cake you want. But it's also because the quality of both of those things is so much higher than.
And then the amount of biking they do.
And the amount of biking.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
All right.
And they are good at portions. Okay, let's do this.
Let's jump into lightning round. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna give you a bunch of either ors, and just first off the top of your head, your answer.
Got it.
Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Beach or mountains?
Mountain.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Hot or cold?
Cold.
City or country?
Country.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
History or scene?
Can you define scene?
Yeah, like the atmosphere of a play. Like
going to music or
going to bars,
clubs.
going to museums and
I'm
going
so
to
torn here.
Going to historical
you know what?
sites.
I'm surprising myself right now. I'm gonna say scene.
Oh,
yeah, let's do it. Clubs or cafes?
Oh, cafes.
Early bird or night owl?
Who do I want to be? Who am I? I'm a night owl.
Fancy or casual?
Casual.
Fast or slow?
Slow.
Dogs or cats or cows or monkeys?
You had to throw cows and monkeys in there.
Yeah.
Cows.
Okay. Okay.
Got to be
really
cows.
Well
monkeys. I had a monkey steal some snacks of mine, and I've never forgive those.
I've had a monkey steal my glasses, and I'm equally I'm blind without my glasses. Yeah.
Oh no! Where was this?
In India, up in the Himalayas.
Which city were you in? Dharamshala?
Shimla.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Just on my way up to Ladakh.
You were in Ladakh.
Yes.
Nice. Did you take Diamox while you were there?
What did I take?
It's like the medicine for
malaria.
Yeah.
I took the one that gave me hallucinations.
Oh, not for malaria. No, for altitude.
or altitude. No, I did not. And I did get messed up the first day in the first 3 days in Leh.
Yeah, Ladak's high, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did mess me up. I also had,
and if you had malaria medication, you too.
I had malaria medication, the altitude, and then I think Giardia all hit at the same time in Leh when I first got to Leh.
You're just riding the snake.
Yes. Yeah. Have you been to Ladakh?
I haven't. No, I was in. I went to yoga camp in the north of Dharamshala in a place called Upper Batsu. It was cool. Yeah.
I was thinking about. Well, now I've tipped my hand potentially. Okay. Let's take a quick break.
Okay, I think mine's gonna be a little scrappy, but I think I can kick things off.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so here's my pitch to you, Eric, for a dream trip.
Hit me.
So I know this is not gonna come as a surprise to Garrett at all. So I noticed you talking a lot about your travel experiences and like Africa and Europe and Eastern Europe and stuff. Have you ever been to South America?
Just recently, I was in. So I climbed a mountain called Aconcagua, which is like it's my second of the 7 summits. So I just spent time on the mountain, and then I was gonna travel through the rest of South America. Well, not the rest of South America. I was gonna do someplace else, but the mountain left me pretty rough, and I couldn't feel my toes afterwards. So I just kind of hung out in a small Argentinian wine town for a couple weeks after. So
that sounds incredible.
It's great.
That's why I want to kind of pitch a trip around South America, because I think for a lot of people, it's like kind of criminally underexplored.
Agreed.
And going into your technophobia thing, South America and like Latin America in general is a hot place where a lot of tech startups are opening up. And it's really interesting because as far as examining like technophobia and like, can tech be more hopeful rather than like terrifying, I think it's a great place to look because there's a lot of intersection between tech and agriculture and how it's helping a lot of businesses down there. So in general, that can kind of play into this theme of stuff you're looking at. And I'd like you to go to I kind of have a bunch of natural places for you to go. In general, I think you'll be bopping around towns, like kind of vibing with the locals, drinking a lot of wine, eating a lot of fun barbecue, because I like Chile and Argentina in particular have a ton of that. But exciting meats you will get to eat are llama, alpaca, guinea pigs in Peru. And
I always wanted to eat a guinea pig. Yeah,
you can get your guinea pig. And then there's also the greater rhea, which basically looks like it's like a South American ostrich, basically.
Oh, sick. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. And as you know, Argentina and Chile have great wine. So you can go to Viña del Mar. Yes. So you can have a lot of wine there, a lot of great nature. I want to send you to Iguazu Falls, which is on the border of Argentina.
Yeah.
You haven't gone?
Really good thought. I almost went there, but my toes weren't working, so I didn't.
Okay. Well, we'll finally make that happen to you. I also want you to go to the Uyuni salt flats in Bolivia.
Oh, cool. Hell yeah.
Which, if you look up a picture, it's crazy. It's like basically like a giant mirror that totally reflects the sky. And then in Chile, you'll go to obviously the Atacama Desert and La Serena to look at the stars. And then the place I'm most excited about for you to go to is in Argentina. And you'll go to the Perito Moreno Glacier.
Yes, I've heard about it.
What's really cool about it, and I think what's really like hopeful about it or interesting, is it's a glacier that's actually growing. It's not shrinking. And so for me, I have a lot of climate anxiety. So hearing that a glacier is actually growing is really exciting.
Yeah.
So basically my pitch is, I think you'll spend, I mean, you can have more time, but at least 6 weeks bopping around South America, kind of looking at the intersection of like tech and agriculture, and also drinking great wine, seeing beautiful things.
Sounds pretty ideal.
Yeah. You can
That
ride a
definitely-
motorcycle if that's not too scary.
I used to have a motorcycle, and yeah, that was not very good at driving it.
Oh no. I was gonna say you can potentially have your own little motorcycle diaries down Chile, but
It's like one of those things where I'm like, I should just be better at it and learn how to do it again. And then I just like hear my mother yelling at me from 7,000 miles away.
yes. Well, you know what? You're welcome to have a car if you want to drive around, or you can bop around by
And be lame.
Yeah. So yeah,
Ooh,
that's the
good.
trip I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's definitely something I would do.
Garrett, are you ready?
Okay, so this is one I haven't been to. But it's been on my list for a long time. And so I'm not gonna have the best in-depth pitch on it. And I'm also worried you've been, because it's close to a place you've talked a lot about.
Put your disclaimers aside and give the pitch.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to going back to any place except for like Transnistria. I think I'm over that place.
For where?
Transnistria. It's this really weird. It's an unrecognized country that I profile in the book. It's this weird slip of land between Moldova and Ukraine that's apparently still the Soviet Union, and it's run by a grocery store brand.
Oh my god,
that's incredible!
Okay.
Wow,
I can't wait to read this book.
Yeah, I gotta send you guys a copy.
Yes,
please.
Please.
I bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to send you to Socotra.
Oh fuck yeah!
Have you
God
been?
damn it!
No, I haven't been.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation about this with a Yemeni guy literally earlier today. Anyway, go
oh
ahead.
really? Yeah. So okay. So you know about the dragon bloods trees. You know about the bottle trees. You know about the 7. It's the Galapagos of the other side of the world, of the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Of, the otherworldly landscapes. You know how it's like it's out there. It's kind of out disconnected from the rest of the world, and you can really get there and see this isn't going to tie into necessarily one of your books that you want to write. This is more to disconnect, to get that kind of sensation of Kilimanjaro back, maybe without the hallucinating of the chickens, but with the kind of being out there and seeing so many diverse landscapes in one little island, and seeing things that you cannot see anywhere else in the world, that are another landscape, another feel like another planet, and meet people that are pretty disconnected from the rest of the world, and just are just lovely people. So I have a short pitch, and it sounds like you already know about it. I really want to go. Let's all three go. Socotra.
Yeah. I really, really want to go to Socotra.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's bad. I gotta go with Socotra on this
one. I knew as soon as he said the one word, I was like, "Yep," and it's lost.
It's sorry. It's like because honestly, you nailed like all of the places that I would go in South America too. Like every last one of them. The Atacama Desert is this huge, like, I mean, it's a huge moment that I'd like to, but it's like the thing with South America is like, I don't want to go there. I want to live 7 lifetimes there,
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my problem. Even saying like 6 weeks, I'm like, that's not enough time.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Like you want, you want to like come back like a different human being from that kind of trip. Whereas I feel like with Socotra is like, I could do a week in Socotra and exhaust all that Socotra has. It's like there's only so many dragon blood trees you can be near.
I accidentally pitched your dream lifetime rather than your dream.
Yeah, no,
trip.
you literally you pitched like alternate universe me that settled in South America instead of the Balkans. I think that's something that, as I've kind of gotten older and continued to travel, like I have to sort of adjust my expectations about what I'm capable of doing. Like there's this condition that I started labeling as coffee shop envy. And coffee shop envy is where you see a sort of perfect block in a city and you are like, wow, that looks like an awesome coffee shop. Wow, it's got a little bookstore next to it. Holy shit, that's like 3 cool looking bars. There's a park over here. Oh my God, I don't want to like just stop in this coffee shop briefly. I want to live a lifetime on this block. I want them to know my everyday order at the bar and the coffee shop. I want to know the children of the owner of the bookstore when they come back from college. I want a lifetime on this block. And I think that's really common.
I definitely have that.
Yeah. And I think that's like what people want when they go to Paris. Like they don't want to just visit Paris. They want to be a Parisian. Like, but it's like always that feeling of like, it's almost like blue balls or something. Like you never quite get there,
Yeah. And I wonder, I've always thought of it as like, I don't know, potentially a uniquely American feeling because I at least didn't grow up with any of that. You know, I grew up in the suburbs. I didn't have like that perfect block. I didn't have like, that little thing where I knew everybody.
Yeah.
Like could go and like.
You never got to feel like Belle.
Totally. Yeah.
Which is who I grew up wanting to be was Belle. And
at least to ride on that like rolly ladder from
through the library. Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like something, and then I go to places, like, Italy, a small village in Italy or a small village in southern France. And like, people are like, yeah, this is just life. This is just my life. Like I have this and it's normal.
Yeah. And I think that my sort of like relationship with coffee shop envy has changed now to the point of like, I know that it is impossible for me to be a regular at all the coolest coffee shops that I've loved in this world. But I also know that the world is a lot better place when you keep looking for all of these great, blocks that you want to spend a lifetime on. And then suddenly you realize that there's a lot of places in the world that are absolutely so spectacular that you want to spend your entire life there. And you want to be a part of the furniture. And just because you don't get to doesn't mean that they're not like these spectacular momentary places in the world, or that you won't like return to them briefly just to have a cup of coffee. Like, and I think like the act of looking for them and appreciating them, even though you're on the road somewhere else, is like, it gets you away from that sort of, as you put it, the blue balls experience of it. Like, oh man, I don't get to be a regular at this coffee shop. But like you get to appreciate it from afar, or you get to like, it's like, when you have a favorite book or something and you're recommending it to somebody else, or like, they haven't read Lord of the Rings, like I think the most magnanimous thing that you can do is instead of being like, you haven't read Lord of the Rings, oh my God, that's so like, because everybody hates that person.
Yes.
But like, it's so much more magnanimous to just sort of look at it and be like, oh my God, this is the thing I really love, and I wish I could forget this book and never have read it, and so I could read it again for the first time. And you as a person get to read it for the first time. And it's like, just understanding that like a new traveler to a place is gonna see that block and like have a truly transcendent croissant is like, adds so much appreciation and joy to the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still bummed that I can't spend like another, decade in South America, like riding motorcycles around and being cool.
I know life is too short.
But I think
Super
it's
is.
also like part of I've been thinking about like emotional palettes a lot lately too. And it's just like specifically about melancholy and whether it's like, I think it is maybe one of my favorite emotions because it does come from a place of love and longing. And I feel like, especially when I'm at those places and I see those coffee shops, there's almost like a degree of melancholy at like, oh, the Rachel who would have lived here and loved that. Like, I love that for her.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, it's like when you can either feel daunted by the amount of books that you have on your bedside table that you've never read, or you can say like, wow, I still get to read all of these books, and that's, or you realize that quite literally I read as much as I possibly can. And that really equates to maybe 12 full books a year. If we're being honest, so, there's no way that I'm ever going to get through like the enormous stack. It's never going to happen. But man, I want that enormous stack just to have them next to me.
Yeah. And then the 12 books you read, you enjoy them, you love them, like you get really into them. And those are 12 lives you live in those books. And it's, it's great.
And every once in a while you come across an absolute banger and then you become a like an evangelist of that particular book.
Speaking of books.
Yeah.
Your new book, You Are Not Here, travels through countries that don't exist. Is it available everywhere now? By the time this comes out, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, I think it's just available on Amazon right now. It probably, I think it'll be in bookstores by the time it comes out. So let's hope that's the case. But definitely the most direct place to get it is going to be on Amazon, especially internationally. I have to bring a bunch of copies back to Albania right now. So I have a bunch ordered in New York, and I packed really light. So I'm just going to pack 70 copies of the book. And bring it back home.
That's awesome.
So yeah, go out and buy it and enjoy it. It is the story of me living in 5 unrecognized nations for a year, and going from becoming a 3rd grade teacher in Iraqi Kurdistan to becoming the ambassador from Liberland to Somaliland.
I can't wait to read this.
Weird year.
Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, this is awesome, guys.
We've run long and I don't even feel bad about it.
No.
It's like,
it's going to be a 2-parter. It's going to be a 2-parter.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
You guys keep traveling, or what? You have like a.
That's Rick Steves' line. That's Rick Steves' line.
Is that Rick Steves' line?
Keep on traveling.
I've been picking a fight with him on Instagram, just because I thought it would be funny if he was my nemesis.
He's such a sweet man. How can
I know? That's why he's like the kindest, like gentlest middle-aged backpacker man who's just like, who built this bridge?
Yeah.
And also, do let me know if you ever get over to Europe, or if you want to come to Albania.
Oh God, I want. Yeah. Well, and let us know next time you're in LA. We should get drinks.
You bet.
Yeah.
And that was Eric Czuleger. I finally got one this season.
Congratulations. You had to pull in the big guns.
Yeah, I had to pull
in a place I'd never heard of before.
You had a good one. He said he wanted to live 7 lifetimes there, which if that was what we were going for, that would, that definitely tops visiting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, you could argue that you won, but ultimately I did win.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm pitching lifetimes, not trivial little travels here.
One of these days we should go to Socotra, and one of these days we should do the tour of South America.
Yep. Once we get money. All right. Thank you all for even, I wonder if anybody's even gotten to us.
they got to the outro and they were like, okay, stop the 2 hours. Thank you all for lasting this long. Have a great week.
Give us a high five.
Give us a high five.
Bye.